This has been a lot of fun. Thank you. I've loved doing this. And she said, if you cannot handle where you are right now, you have no business putting one foot forward. Deal with where you are, and you'll be shown what to do next. That has been the mantra of my life. It's deal with now, and the tap on the shoulder, the request, the opportunity will present itself. Adventure with Purpose has become a tag title for all the things that we've done. Getting to Antarctica, landing there in 74, 75 season as a member of the Pararescue team was, as a young man, was incredible. There were so many things that I learned through that, not only skydiving and precision jumping from high altitudes. One of the things I really love about skydiving is it's the first time I'm really in control of my life. Right there on the door, all we saw fire, orange flames, and the noise was deafening. There are 4 rockets on either side that were exploding. People just passed out. And it was the first time that I heard absolute quiet, where there was no interference, there was no sound. The only thing that I could hear my heartbeat. Peace. Most peaceful. No talking. Quiet. I found that to be very spiritual, very amazing. I don't think there's any place like it. The reason that I'm actually on with you is that I wrote a book with Miles Spencer, and it's called A Line in the Sand. It is the reason that we have been doing podcasts. And I wanted to go to the Middle East and find out what it was all about. And it was an adventure with purpose.
Welcome to another episode of the Oliver Schirach Show. Today we dive into the extraordinary life and adventures of Wells Jones, an adventurer with purpose, a pararescue veteran, a world traveler, an event producer and author. We go from the icy extremes of Antarctica to the sun-scorched deserts of the Middle East. Wells has lived a life defined by curiosity, adaptability and resilience. And in this conversation, you'll hear the stories of skydiving at the South Pole, producing massive charity events around the world, and embarking on a daring trek across the Middle East in search of understanding and connections, which then resulted in his book, A Line in the Sand. Wells shares fascinating stories of survival, the lessons learned from both triumph and near disasters, and moments of spiritual stillness in the world's most remote places. We explore the power of being present, the importance of listening to others' stories, and the value of following your inner voice, even when it leads you far away from the familiar. If you're ready for a journey that spans continents, cultures, and the depths of human experiences, you are on the right place. So without any further ado, welcome to Wells Jones and a life of purpose and adventure. Welcome to my show and to the Oliver Schirach Show, dear listeners from around the world. And today we are going as usual. We are just jumping in. And I have Wells Jones, or Jones Wells, here with me. Adventurer with purpose, a man that's pivoting his life career, it looks like, from one thing to the other, and I'm sure we're gonna go into it. And welcome on my show.
Thank you very much, Oliver. What I love is when you say around the world to the listeners. That's cool, because I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, USA, and of course you're in Denmark, yes?
Yes, and
Okay.
in the spring of Denmark, in the warm spring this year.
That's good. That's good. We've had some warmth as well. What's really wonderful is the lilacs and the lilies, the flowers that pop out in the trees, and the mountains are at 12,000 feet, 13,000 feet near us. So it's very nice. I like spending time up there.
Yeah. One of your things, mountaineering, being active.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had already an introduction talk a few weeks back, 2-3 weeks back, and so I know a little bit about you, and I listened to one podcast. But still, I would like to open up for the listeners so they know who you are. So how would you describe yourself in 3 words, and why would you choose these 3 words with a description?
Am I curious, adaptable, resilient? What does that mean? They just popped out. Now I have to explain myself. Why don't we talk, and the listeners will see how those have been infused in my life. Curiosity. Well, I was in high school in Vermont, in a very rural area, and this was rural. There were 5 towns, and I started in 4th grade in this area. My graduating class was the same class as the 4th grade class, was 31. And so that was 5 towns feeding. And when I was a sophomore in 10th grade, I said to my mom, I think I want to leave. I mean, I'm not running away. I want to run away. She said, what are you talking about? I said, I really don't know what to do here. I know there's more to life than this. And read a book. I don't want to read a book. I want to go and explore this. I mean, I ski, right? I do a little hiking, but there's so many more bigger areas to go to. And she said, if you cannot handle where you are right now, you have no business putting 1 foot forward. Deal with where you are, and you'll be shown what to do next. Oliver, it seems like that has been the mantra of my life, it's deal with now, and the tap on the shoulder, the request, the opportunity will present itself. And you mentioned that I've had different careers. I think I just became interested, or I was asked to join different disciplines, and I found that they all required curiosity and adaptability and resilience. I mean, at least those. And so within my mother's words and my curious desire to go to above the tree line and see the meadows and smell the air and experience it, is adapting. And she said, in other words, you learn to adapt. And that has been something that I've expanded because of the different things I've been asked to do by other people. People that were older than I was, that they knew what they wanted, and they were saying, we want you to do this. And it just worked out that I was able to do so many different things, as you've seen. I started out with the Pararescue team in Antarctica, and that evolved. I went into the service thinking that I just knew enough about jets, and this is in 1973, a long time ago. But I knew that I wanted to do something big that required intelligence and skill and more than playing tennis and winning, or racing on skis and winning, something that was more individual in a way and expansive. So I went into the service, and I was thinking, I could get a GI Bill if I go in for 4 years, get a GI Bill. I could go to university and become a jet pilot. And that was kind of in the back of my mind always. I ended up with an outfit that flew planes for the National Science Foundation around Antarctica. we were the air arm to Antarctica. And Antarctica is, for those that don't know, it's as large as North America. It's at the bottom of the globe, but when you turn, the globe has an axis points, and you try to look at Antarctica, it's got that pin always in the middle of it because it's at the bottom of the world. And no one's ever really looked at a map. I mean, very few people just looking at a map of Antarctica to see its expanse, And so as a young guy, I was assigned to this outfit, and they had a pararescue team, and I applied for it following the guidance of a gruff guy in an enlisted men's club. I asked him what those gold wings were on his chest. So what is that? He goes, parachute wings. Parachute wings? Were you a parachutist? Yes. I'm on the Antarctic Pararescue team. What? Are you kidding me? He said, you want to join? You want to try it? And so I did. He said, well, it's going to take 6 months. You got to train. You got to get accepted. And so blah, 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 I did. And getting to Antarctica, landing there in 74, 75 season, stepping off the C-130 onto the ice as a member of the pararescue team as a young man, was just incredible. There were so many things that I learned through that, not only skydiving and precision jumping from high altitudes to, we never jumped low, but we always strove to land on the target, and learning medical treatments and climbing in and out of crevasses and snow caves and climbing up glaciers, all with rescue in mind. And so it was very exciting.
Wow. So that was all. So you were 4 years in Antarctica, or
actually, I was 4 years with this squadron. We were stationed out of California, and we trained there. That's where the home base was, at Point Mugu, which is north of Malibu. If anyone knows the California coast, Malibu is the area where we had recent fires that were just devastating. At any rate, there are seasons in Antarctica, and the seasons run from October to February. And that's the season when the sun is at its, is out. And so we were there during that time. And that's when the scientists from all over the world would come down. And then many of them went through the National Science Foundation because they were in charge of and had the ability, through hiring our C-130s and helicopters, to fly scientists around Antarctica. And so that's what we did. And the pararescue team was there primarily because of the mishaps. The planes, they were either having problems landing or taking off. And with that, they needed a team to be able to skydive in and to assist with issues on the ground, on the ice, on the snow. And I keep saying the ice. Antarctica is also known as the ice. If someone says, "Have you been to the ice?" they really mean, "Have you been to Antarctica?"
So not the North Pole then.
It's not, no, because there's no real at the North Pole. There's not stationed. It's not set up like it is in Antarctica. It's on a continent, and beneath all that snow and ice is terra firma. There's land, At the South Pole, I think this ice thickness must be over 10,000 feet thick at the South Pole.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water if that melts away.
Well, they say it is. They say the part of, with the climate change, the just great big slabs are breaking off from icebergs and from the sides of cliffs, snow cliffs along the ocean. Yes.
Have you witnessed that personally, to see something like that happen?
I've seen ice break away, but not like it's doing now with warmer temperatures. But I have seen massive, sheets of ice. It's almost like an avalanche but it's right being out in the water and just seeing it crash down into the water is amazing.
Wow.
That's some wonderful pictures of that. Yeah.
I can imagine. And being down there, how many people in the world will ever see Antarctica? So that must be special.
It captures people when you say that, and especially recently, I've included it on my bio, along with the book. The reason that I'm actually on with you is that I wrote a book with Miles Spencer, and it's called A Line in the Sand, and it's kind of at one end of my journey, and I mean I'm doing more than that, but it is the reason that we have been doing podcasts.
Yeah. And so people react differently when you mentioned that you have been down there and parachuting on top of that.
That's right. It seems to capture people's imagination as it did mine. I was thrilled. And so my level of curiosity was ratcheted up and learning to adapt. I was trained and then I became an instructor for survival in Antarctica. And so that, and coupled with, you learn resilience, you learn to adapt, you learn to deal with the undeniable that's right in your face. And it's not a person, it's weather. It's extreme cold or a whiteout that pops on you, or a need, another person's need that we're engaged with.
Yeah. And you were what, 20, 24 or?
Yeah, I was when I got there, I was 19.
Wow,
the first time.
That's an early learning, huh?
It is, but that's okay. When one is receptive and focused, which was, the skill of being focused, that's what it required to learn these things, to be able to jump out of a C-130. And what an incredible experience to a C-130 is a large cargo plane, but the tail ramp of that C-130 opens up like this, and you end up having, it's almost like a movie theater screen, and it's just open to the sky and, or below the earth, and to go jumping off the back end of a C-130 with other guys and gals, but mostly guys in our case with the Navy in this outfit, was incredible. And becoming skilled at traveling in the air. There's a position when you skydive, it's called tracking. And so for every 2 feet you fall, you go 1 foot across the ground. So you get in this position, you just fly across the sky. And but the point is to land on the target. There's all this great things you can do in the air, but with the rescue team, it's get to the target, and it is a mission, a job.
Yeah, I can see. I was just like, while you explained with the C-130 when it's opening the back, I just see all these movies when they go out of a cargo airplane. Is that basically the same airplane you see in a lot of these movies, or?
It may have been, I don't know specifically the movie, but there are very large cargo planes. The C-130 is not the largest at all, but opening the tail ramp and going out the back, they're all basically, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
You're basically jumping into an airstream.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It is, the aircraft is going 125 miles an hour, and you jump out. In the very beginning, when I first would jump out, I would spin around, and there's just a moment where you're held in a vacuum until you slip into the airstream, and then suddenly you're just swept into the sky. And you turn around and then find your guys, and you track towards them and hook up, and fall together down.
Yeah, so you have to do the circle to stay together. Otherwise, the risk is too high that you're getting too much spread out for a rescue mission.
No, it's just one of the things that we can do. Ultimately, you still have to split off from if you're hooking up with someone, but it's just one of the things that can be done. That just being, at 12,000 feet and hooked up with someone else and being able to share that experience and then take off in another direction is just a thrill.
Wow.
It's a thrill.
Yeah, I could just ask all kind of things on parachute, parajumping, paragliding. After the service, did you continue jumping? Did you continue training, or?
I've never done another jump, and I've had only in my dreams. And the dreams were I've dreamt about skydiving just since. Every once in a while, in the early days after I left the Navy, it was in a recurring dream. Always good, always good. I was going to do, my climbing partner, the guy and my best pal in the service was Paul. And Paul and I would climb and stayed in shape, did a lot of jogging and running, especially in Antarctica. And we decided that once we were out of the service, we were thinking about what do we want to do? Do we want to stay in or want to become a SEAL or part of the SEAL team or something like that, Special Forces? And we both agreed that we would become smoke jumpers. Smoke jumpers are firemen that go into the wilderness, to fight fires. And he knew a little bit more about it than I did. Thing was that he wasn't getting out of the service at the same time. He was going to be in 6 months longer. And I decided after finding out that to be a smoke jumper, you must have, rightfully so, at least 2 seasons on the ground to know what you're doing. I mean, and then the jumping in is just, it's nothing like the skydiving we did. We always did free fall. We were always in control of where we were, when we were going to jump out of the plane, at what exit point, so that we could land on that target. And smoke jumping, it's a whole different thing, very rigorous, and it's involving, it's more like combat for sure. You're jumping with a lot of gear, the gear and food and safety, the few things that you can carry as you're fighting the fire, as you're digging trenches and stuff. As young men, I mean, we were ready for it. We were thought we were, strong and wanted to experience it. But I want to tell you, one of the things about being in the service, I really had to come to terms with the first time purpose and intention. And it came out of a very high level of ego that kind of I was seemed to have about myself and my feeling about myself being a pararescue team member. And we did an air show with the Blue Angels, which is a very precise Navy. It's like Top Gun, but it's even more than Top Gun. These guys are the creme de la creme pilots, and they do air shows. They do performances in their aircraft that demonstrate, the ability and the strength of the United States Naval Aviation, and it's through the Blue Angels. And so in the elite group, we were asked to jump, to skydive as an opening act. It's like an opening act for a band, a headliner. Blue Angels were headliners. And there's thousands of people at an airfield. And so we had beautiful jumpsuits and, we were trimmed out. We had canisters of smoke that are just like little canisters that has a cotter pin, and you trip the cotter pin and smoke just comes flying out. But you have blue smoke, green smoke, yellow smoke, red smoke, and you strap it to your ankle and you run a line off the cotter pin up strapped to your thigh so you can grab it and pop it when one finishes or 2 finish, and then you pop it. Well, I was feeling pretty full of myself, thinking, man, pretty cool. And it wasn't long after we did this jump with the Blue Angels, which was an honor, and 3 of us were going up in a helicopter to jump. And it was kind of set up that I was going to be on the right side, another guy was going to be on the left side in the door. and Paul would be in the middle. And so I went up and I jumped on board. And as soon as I jumped on board, my tail end hit and my feet are hanging out the door of the helicopter. The helicopter raised, was taking off. And I thought, oh, I don't have to strap in. I don't have to tie into the cable. I'm wearing a parachute, but I thought, you're cool. Just enjoy the ride. So we're moving up and we were flying over the mountains near the coast. It's Point Magoo. And below us are trees and rocks and whatnot. And we're flying to a point where we're going to drop streamers to see where we're going to our exit point. And the helicopter made a very sharp right bank. I mean, it just went, and I slid out of the door of the helicopter. My one foot caught the skid. The other foot was below the skid. And I, with my right foot, was pushing myself, trying to get back into the helicopter because I was falling out. Leveled out, and I was shaking so hard, I thought I was going to die. Well, I said, what are you doing? This is crazy. What are you doing? Why didn't you tie in? What are you doing? Meanwhile, Paul said, you okay? I gave a thumbs up, but I was shaking. I mean, I lost control of my... Why are you doing this? And it just came to me. Because it's transportation. You are on the Antarctic Pararescue team, and this is the quickest way down to help someone that's in need. This is not a joke, a game, or playtime. That's your purpose for skydiving. So treat it with respect. And this is all happening to me. I've been playing around. I've been horsing around, not, it was ego. And I really, Oliver, I learned that was one of the first big times that I learned, here I knew, and I said to myself, one of the things I really love about skydiving is it's the first time I'm really in control of my life. Now, what I didn't mention is that my father died when I was 11. And it was right around that, it wasn't long, that my mother just was incredible. I'm from a large family. And so we all were dealing with, not having a dad. And my mother never remarried. She loved him. She never remarried. And we made it through. I mean, I'm here. But I realized I had to learn. So my curiosity, sometimes curiosity kills the cat or something like that. But then ego. And I realized that I had a sense of ego that got me in trouble. And it's done that before. And from it, I've learned lessons. And it has to do with figuring out, what are you doing here? What's your intention? What's your purpose? And so it started with the service. And it wasn't because it was the service. It was that the time and the things that I was doing that allowed these lessons to come in. And I didn't become a smoke jumper, and I did get the GI Bill, but it was my mother. Again, she said, look, you did some acting and some community theater. You're really very good. You love, you like to go to places. You like to be things, do Shakespeare.
One thing.
You'll get
the one thing, right? Shakespeare. Start with Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Why not something easier?
She said, she said, you can be a prince, you can be a king, you can be a, horrible man, whether it's Shakespeare, but in other words, you can have different experiences. And she said, you're just very good at it. It's just the way it is. Why don't you try it? So I did. And I was in Santa Barbara, and I went to school there and started acting with English as a minor, acting theater as a major. And again, it's like fully commit. Just be ready, fully commit. Don't comment on it. Flow with it. And it just worked very well. I ended up, instead of going to LA, in 1980, I went to New York City. So really one end of the country to the other, but I wanted to learn the craft. And so I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I had a real rough time there because they wouldn't allow for any tricks in acting. And if there's any listeners that are listening that know about acting, they know what I'm talking about. The tricks. They say, be in the moment. Respond with what's happening. And there again, kind of like my mom's mantra, that thing that I learned. Deal with where you are now fully. Listen. Open up your ears. Open up your eyes. Absorb. You're curious, then pay attention. And so I did, and I loved it, but then I couldn't feed a family from doing theater. And so I took the training from the American Academy with my wife, and we started a production company. We had already produced children, so now we had to produce the finances to take care of the children and the house and things. And so we went into theater, not theater production, but productions that were live staged events. And one thing that I haven't mentioned is that there's a quote from Churchill, Winston Churchill, that I discovered a long time ago, and then it came back up in different times in my life, but it's something that really resonates with me when it encapsulates what I feel I've done and what I'm doing right now. I'm going to read it, okay? The quote. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. And that the tap came when I was acting, people saying, I want you. And it started first with the son of a very famous acting instructor coach, Lee Strasberg, his son, John. His father had passed on just a little bit before, like a year or so before. And I found myself auditioning for John Strasberg, who comes from theater royalty in the United States. I mean, it's big stuff. And I had just graduated from the academy. I had done one professional show in a different city than New York. And I gave him my picture and resume, and just very little on it because I was new. It had shows from the American Academy. It's like, it means nothing. And I had one show that was professional. That meant something. But what meant something to him was at the very bottom. I still have the resume. I mean, it's so bare. There's nothing. But it said skills. You're supposed to prove, what are your skills? Well, people say I can type. I can do, I know how to ride a horse.
Yeah.
I can ski. But I said Antarctic Pararescue Team.
There we go back, right? Antarctic Pararescue Team.
Bingo. And John looked at that. I'm doing my monologue. I'm, la, 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 la. And he says, stop. Oh boy, here we go. I've heard about this. Rejection. He's done. People said, these auditions in New York City, director, they may be eating lunch and you don't know if they're listening or paying, but they say, go ahead, keep going, or they say stop. And when they say stop, watch out. It means you're done, pretty much, so just don't get mad. Just thank them, turn around and walk out. You say, come here. tell me about Antarctica. And I did. And I say, hey, I hear you're a brown belt, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, I am. I'm working on that. But it was the Antarctic thing in a shared sense of, adventure, excitement. And he was just, he said, okay, good. Nice to meet you. I said, oh, very nice to meet you. Turn around and walk. And I went, he said, oh, he said, don't worry. We'll be in touch. I said, am I? He said, yeah, you're in. It was like, so it was great. It was like 90 seconds of a monologue. And he read the resume, he saw Antarctica. And so, yeah, it captures people's imagination. And well, it should, because to get there and to get to McMurdo is a real win. To see an operation there where you've got French and Danes and Italians and Spanish and British and Aussies going through and coming together. And the first time I saw an expedition put together, it was just like that, being led by the French, going into Mount Erebus, the active volcano. And these guys, they had all their climbing gear and speaking all these languages and getting ready to climb up and go down the crater of a volcano.
Yeah. Who goes down a volcano? I hope he was not active.
Yeah. You see, well, it smokes. Yeah, and they're very large, so you can get close. When you go into the crater, it's not like going into the heat. It still has distance before you get to the actual hole where there's steam and stuff like that coming out of.
That was in Antarctica as well? This volcano
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
It's active, as in I don't know if it's erupted, but it's you can see the exhaust from the volcano itself. And there are times in Antarctica, there's zero humidity there, and everything is very still unless there's wind. But the smoke would come out of Mount Erebus, and there were days when it would literally make a right-hand turn where it hit a wind stream, and there would be one line that would just go literally 180 degrees, even more. Just for 50 miles, you could see the line. Wow. It's just, Antarctica is a very pure place. There's no pollution. There's no flora, fauna. There's nothing there. There are penguins in different areas. And there's, near the coast, there are birds called skua gulls. And they're just a gull bird, like a, I don't know much about birds, but skua gulls is what they're called. But there's nothing else there except snow and ice and sky. And, when we're there, 3 o'clock in the afternoon is the same as 3 o'clock in the morning. It's the same position of the sun.
Yes. So how deep did you get into the needle point of the axis, basically the South Pole? Did you get close?
The South Pole? Yes, I got to the South Pole, and in 1977 I made a skydive jump at the South Pole. In 1977, our team made a jump at the South Pole. I was number 7. There were 6 guys before me in different years that had jumped. We started getting technical. There's 5 of us on the team, so I was the first one out the door, so I was number 7 in terms of the individuals that have ever skydived the South Pole. 20 years later, in 1997, 6 guys, civilians, came in from the Argentinian area to the South Pole with a Twin Otter plane, and they made a skydive jump. 3 of them died.
Oh, why is that?
I don't know the specifics, but in 2 cases, there was no indication that they went to pull their ripcord.
Oh,
so they lost sense of time, and They had many more jumps than I had. My jump, that was my 87th jump that I skydived the South Pole. And these guys had several hundred each, hundreds
And
of jumps.
so is it so special to jump down there that you lose the feeling of how far you're off ground and that you should pull the parachute?
Well, the day that we jumped, it was minus 59 degrees when we jumped out of the plane.
Oh, shit.
I had basically a 7-second delay before I pulled my parachute. I don't know the information that I sent you on my resume. If you click on that, the link to the skydive jump at the South Pole, you will see the pictures, but also at the bottom, you will see the information that I just said about the 1997 jump. We jumped in 77. So it's not a regular occurrence for people to skydive the South Pole. But yes, depending upon the weather, you can be completely disoriented as to which end is up, because everything looks the same, unless there's a real clear blue sky, and then you see blue and white. Other things that can happen back then when we were jumping with ripcords, the ripcord was a long wire that had little pins on it that was holding your parachute together, and it was on your chest up here, and you hook your thumb in it and you pull it out, and there's a housing. It's just like it's almost like an electrical housing that you see that's BMX. It's metal, and it's flexible metal. But if you're in if the parachute has been in the cold and then goes into a warm plane, there would be condensation. It would be built up in that cable line. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Inside that housing. And then as soon as you step out into the cold, it would freeze. And so it's possible that ripcords froze in there. I mean, it was one of the main things that we watched for before we jumped, to make sure the line was free before we jumped out.
Yeah, so they might not have had that. Plus, the weather might have been not so clearly blue skyish.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
it's really cold, and your hands are and everything.
Yes. Also, I was out in 1977. In 1979, an airplane crashed into Mount Erebus, and it killed 200 and some odd people. You could look that up. They were there to fly over Antarctica. They paid, it's a special flight to get a look at Antarctica that people had never seen before. But that plane crash was, I'm certain that the pararescue team would not have been called in on that, because it was at such a high level, and we would be relegated just to the other people that were there, not a commercial airline flight, because they brought in a lot of people. And it was a horrific situation. There's a documentary about this plane crash and about the trying to figure out what actually happened and why it went into Mount Erebus. But that's just to give you an indication of the extreme weather.
I had to ask, because when you said lost time, the sense of time, and I was like, wow, right? It could be different than so you don't have feeling anymore.
That's right. Well, I think that's very possible. One of the things I had what you have to deal with when you're a mountain climber or doing something like skydiving, and especially if there is the added element that there's been a plane crash. And so as a rescue member, and I've been in this situation where I got the call and I had to get down to the helicopter that was going to fly me to the C-130 that's further away. To hear that a plane is down, I mean, you have to control your thinking, and you have to stay very focused, because and especially if you know what plane it is and who was on the plane. And so you think of just in terms of your job and making sure that all of your gear is ready to go. And when it's time to jump or time to move, that you're conscious and focused and ready to do that. And so those kind of demands on one's mentality and physical abilities and focus. Paul and I, we teamed up. And so when we were putting on our parachutes to jump in to this plane crash, it's just, again, making sure that I'm checking everything on his harnesses, his, instruments, making sure that everything is in order. Ripcord is free. Like I was saying, there's no condensation, there's not iced up, everything's ready to go. And then he would check me. And we got to that point, we were 10 minutes out, and we got a call that a second plane diverted to the crashed plane and was landing to help. So there were 2 planes down. The second plane ended up having a mishap trying to take off. We landed. There were 3 planes on the ground. The first plane, the wing had broken off because of the details of that. Doesn't matter, but the wing was gone, and it's a big aircraft. So that's 2 engines gone, and it had I don't know how big the crew was. The crew was probably about 7 people, and then they had passengers that were scientists, and so they all got on the second plane. And while they were doing that, that's when we got the call. Well, when the second plane landed, we got the call, we're not going to jump in. That we don't need to do that. There's a second plane down. And then the question was, were we going to land? And it was, yes, we need to land, and we need to go to the first plane and take pictures and record the plane through the snow to record what happened. While we were doing that, the second plane was going by to take off. It crashed.
Ouch.
Crew on the first plane was on the second plane, and all the passengers with the second plane that had passengers. And that one was down. We got a horn call to an emergency call to get back to our plane. When we got back to our plane, we found out the second plane, the nose ski of the plane came up into the compartment. It broke off. It crashed through. Why? Because there's these waves. If you think of it as waves, do you know what sastrugi is?
I have never heard that word.
That's right. Well, it's an unusual word. It's where the wind creates these waves of snow and ice that are anywhere from a foot to 3 feet high. And it's just usually in a flat area, and it just creates these waves. And when you're in an airplane and you have to deal with sastrugi, you usually have JADO to help you take off. JADO are canisters, metal containers that you attach on the outside of the plane, and when they're at night, they're like jets. They give you power to get up in the air. The brackets holding the JADO, sometimes with the sastrugi and the bouncing, go off, and so you have a loose rocket. On the first plane, the JADO went through the wing, and the wing, it tipped the plane, and the wing broke off. The second plane, it was the nose ski. In other words, there was so much pounding to get in the air to take off with the weight. But the nose ski, and the nose ski is huge. It's like, 12 feet long and probably 6 feet wide. And it's in the nose of the plane, it's the front wheel of the plane. And it just crashed up. The whole system broke and came up underneath the plane into the cockpit compartment area. So the third plane we were on, and we had to pick up everyone 2 planes.
Wow.
I'm on our plane, and we loaded JATO on the outside of our plane. Now, the JATO is on brackets. We're right next to a door. They call it the parachute doors. We never jumped out of those doors. But the parachute doors have a portal, and the JATO, you can't see the JATO, but it's just in front of that door, just behind the wing. We had 33 people strapped back of the C-130 ramp.
Oh,
It's the doors that are closed, and it just goes at an angle up to the ceiling of the aircraft. So it was 3 rows of 11 people and cargo straps holding them in. Half the people were on oxygen, portable oxygen. People from the first plane, scientists and crew that got off their plane, went through a crash, got off their plane and saw a plane with the wing off. We got on a second plane. That plane crashed. So the trauma that was happening with people, they were very nervous, and it was very cold. I think it was like minus, 20 something where we were outside. So the third plane is going to take off. We have the JATO on the outside. The plane starts taking off, and we feel the bounce of the plane through the Sesturgi. And then suddenly the JATO is ignited, and none of us knew that it was anything about it. What it appeared was the plane was blowing up, because through the window, right there on the door, all we saw fire, orange flames, and the noise was deafening. There are 4 rockets on either side that were exploding. People just passed out. And so we're trying to deal with that. The plane's crashing like this. The noise was deafening, and then the noise stopped, and we're still crashing. There's a guy, the crew chief, has a strap on him, and he's holding on like this, and he's going, "We're not going to get out of here." And he's going like this. So he got worried that the plane's not able to, it's too heavy, can't take off. And then all of a sudden, everything got quiet. And we were airborne. I mean, it was something like, is there a God? Is there a divine force? The JATO was done. People were just coming to. Oxygen, people were sucking on oxygen. They were wrecks. And I'm just dealing with, what I could reach. And everybody on the team, we were all in different rows, part of the rows, helping. And we got out of there. It just stopped bouncing. And you could see out the window that we weren't climbing. It wasn't like a plane taking off at the airport. We just went for miles, just slowly getting airborne. So going through situations like that and having intention, having purpose, being there to help is just learning that no matter what is thrown at you, you may not like it, but you can see it through. We have the capacity to do that. And I look back at that incident, and I'm probably 21 years old then. And I heard people say, oh, the show is over, we can't do this. And it's just like being calm and just listening and going, well, what about this? Oh, and you think about that. It's finding a voice, but not speaking and just being calm. And that was needed very much in producing events. The first show was at Lincoln Center and Avery Fisher Hall in New York City. There was a big jazz show, and it was just people like the Churchill quote says, got a tap on the shoulder, a request. What would you do with this show if you were directing it? Well, I love the show, first of all, and blah, 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 blah. Would you direct it? Me? Yeah. You and your wife. Yeah. Love to. And then finding out what it takes to really, what that really means to direct a stage full of people in a performance. And not being fearful, just being alert, taking it on fully. And I've learned that it started back in the service, started back with my mom. There were wonderful things in acting, and I was very fortunate to be, when you do a show with Strasbourg name behind it, the people were all just grand, legendary stage actors. Geraldine Page, F. Murray Abraham. He had just won for Salieri the Academy Award in the movie Amadeus. And he ended up giving the Academy Award away to our lead artist in residence, Geraldine Page, the next year, because the male Academy Award winner gives the female Academy Award winner, it keeps switching around the next year. And just wonderful people. And then I met Miles. And when I met Miles, all kinds of great things took place. We did television shows. We did live events around the country. We've done producing sea festivals in Saudi Arabia. And we've done some very adventurous, exciting things. And we did a trek through the Middle East.
Yeah.
Going from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia to Damascus and then into Israel. And that's what our book, Alignment, is based on. The trek was done in 2006. And we didn't write the book until last year, March of last year, 2024. And it's because we've been so busy with our own lives and also working on producing a Broadway play with the same topic that has not been produced. We've been working with writers on it. But Miles and I wanted to go to the Middle East and find out what it was all about. And it was an adventure with purpose. Before that, we did an event that was called Kayak for a Cause. It ran for 10 years. Kayak for a Cause.
Okay.
And it was his brainchild. They're all his brainchild. And the guy has got the ability to connect dots. And then he puts together the team to make it happen. But Kayak for a Cause started out with two guys, two friends, not me and Miles, but Miles and another friend. It's also a friend of mine. Betting each other to go across Long Island Sound. It's about 13 miles, open water, from one piece of land to the next, from Connecticut to Long Island, to kayak. And where they were sitting at the bar, a guy, said, I'll give you $50. You do it. If you can do it, I don't think you can do it. They did it. Not only that, they did it. They went over and then they kayaked back, which was very cool. But what happened from that is that people heard about it and they said, oh, I want to do that. And so the next year they'd had like 5 or 7 people that got kayaks and did it. And then the following year, it got up to 20 some odd people. And the following year, we got up to 50 some odd people. And by the time he told me about it, they had done year 5 and they had done like 135 people going, wow, that's amazing. And then what do you do? He said, well, we go across and then we get local bands to play music. We have a party. The kayakers raise the money and they raise enough. We can, get some food and get a little stage set up and have some, have a party. I said, that's great. He said, I want you to be a part of it, join us. I said, yeah. I said, I'll produce the music. And so I worked on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We worked up to 313 kayaks, which is a Guinness record of sea kayaks launched at one time. And all the kayakers, they would form pods of 10 people and name their pod, like the pirates and the wenches and the bloody hounds and the whatever cool names. And they would raise money. They'd go out to their friends and business people and say, look, we're going to kayak across Long Island Sound and we're raising money and the money is going to help pay for the event. But we were going to give a portion of this money to local charities. So, we're going to identify a charity or two and write them checks. And so by the time we reached 313 kayak, which is 31 pods, the money that was being raised was enough to have either the Neville brothers, we had the Neville brothers as the headliner and local bands filling in. We've had the Whalers. We've had Dickie Betts and the Great Southern, which is the Allman Brothers guy that wrote so many of those songs, Dickie Betts, different years. And we were writing 5 checks to 5 charities for $50,000
Each or all together?
each.
Each. Oh.
Each.
Oh.
That's called Kayak for a Cause, Venture with Purpose. Isn't that cool?
Wow. Yeah, it's awesome.
We stopped in 2010 because it was just a mammoth project. And Miles had done 10 years of it, and he said, I'm done. We're done.
Okay, so
We'll do 10 years.
So it started 2000 until 2010.
Correct.
Wow.
Or
Okay.
2001, whatever it was.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Yeah.
And so this, adventure with purpose.
Just an idea.
Yeah. And the name Adventure with Purpose comes from there, or does it go even further back?
It does. When I got involved, I said, this is an adventure with purpose. And it's something that Miles and I, absorbed and took on, because then we used that also for other things that we did. But Adventure with Purpose has become a tag title for all the things that we've done, because we did, we called it Lawrence on Arabia.
Okay.
Adventure with Purpose. And that was Miles and Wells going to the Middle East. And we used the same model as we did with Kayak for a Cause to raise money to go. And this was in 2005, 2006. We said that we are going to go to the Middle East because we want to see for ourselves what's going on. The headlines are how horrible all the Arabs are. And we've read about T.E. Lawrence, who said they weren't horrible. That he liked them. He liked the region. That it was always feuding, feuds between the tribes and stuff like that. But he didn't try to change them. He liked them. And we did a lot of research about the First World War and Lawrence. And so we decided to use him as our guide to go from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which is basically where he started, in the Arab Revolt in World War I, and going up along the Hejaz, along the Red Sea, into the Gulf of Aqaba, which is a strategic point in the war and geographically for the Turks won. They overthrew the fort in Aqaba. And so we went to the key places during the Arab Revolt and worked our way to Damascus. And we went through many castles. We went to Petra. We were in Wadi Rum. We explored. And then we went into Israel. So we wanted to make it an adventure with purpose. And so we wanted to find a charity to raise money, because that would help us raise money. If we said we're going to give 25% of what we raise is going to go to a charity. And we found the most magnificent charity. It's called Seeds of Peace. And please, that should be on the show notes, Seeds of Peace. They've been around since 1993. And it's a summer camp where Palestinian and Israeli kids, or Arab and Jewish high school kids, get together in Maine, United States, Maine, on a lake, and for the summer learn to get along with each other. They learn conflict resolution. They learn about the history of both sides together. And so we included that in our book, but we didn't call it Seeds of Peace. We called it Seeds of Hope. And the two guys that are in the book, A Line in the Sand, Jeremy and Abdu, are based on Seeds of Peace people that we met when we did our trek in 2006. So we raised money for the trek, and we had to pay for our security consultant. We had to pay for, equipment that we were taking. And we trained for 8 months before we went to the Middle East.
Wow.
And
So,
yeah,
so what means training 8 months, thinking of going to Middle East?
okay. My training was when I first started doing solo summits of mountains in the middle of the night to get up in time for the sunrise. I did that by myself because I wanted to come to terms with me and the fears, being alone, being in the snow, being in the rain, being in hot heat with a backpack on, and having a goal to get to the top before the sunrise. So most of the hike, the scramble, was done in the dark with a headlamp. And I started doing that in Colorado on two 14ers, primarily Bierstadt. And I did it once first during the daylight, so I knew the mountain enough, and then decided to do it. You get up on the top before the sunrise. And the first time I did it, when I was on the top, I was in a snowstorm, but I did get up before the time of the sunrise. It was a snowstorm that I had considered turning back on, and it just blew in, and I got to the marker on the very top. It was 14,000. I forgot. I don't know the exact number of feet, but very tall. It was in meters. You would think of it in meters,
Yes.
but it's still it's up there. It's not way up there, but it's up there. And I had a dog with me. I did have Callie, my dog, Black Lab, and Callie was amazing. And in the snowstorm, she got a little skittish and was completely white. And the only thing that I could see that it was a dog were her little black eyes. She was a black lab, and she made it to the top with me. And then we ran down. Soon we got clear of the very slick boulders. We ran down into no snow. It was a snowstorm, and then we got out of it. And it was spectacular. So training was like that. Then we had to figure out about where we were going to go. We had a rough idea, but we didn't know how we were going to actually get there. The first step was to get into Saudi Arabia. And in 2005, 2006, no American citizens were applying for visas to go to Saudi Arabia. It was post 9/11. Not all the 19 terrorists of 9/11 were from Saudi, most, but it was not a place that people were going to. But we wanted to get there because of our purpose, what we were doing. We wanted to see for ourselves and meet the people on the ground. We did stay in some nice places, but we camped out. We were on camel. We ended up finding a travel company. We agreed to read 7 Pillars of Wisdom. I mean, not detail, but to get an idea of what we were looking for, what we wanted to do, because we wanted to follow that path. Then we figured out that we needed instruction, protection. Were we going to carry a knife? Were we going to find a gun? Were we going to... It's like, no. We needed instruction. We needed insurance. What kind of insurance? Well, we needed life insurance. But what kind of life insurance? And it got down to kidnap and ransom life insurance. And what do you know about kidnap and ransom? We don't. We were led to an individual, Jamie Lothar Pinkerton, who was a retired SAS major, Irish Guard. He was very knowledgeable about kidnap and ransom and checkpoints, as well as many other things, but those were important to us. And so we spoke with him, and we worked out that he would be our risk assessment, conflict management instructor. And it turned out that way, but it also turned out that and we didn't know this when we first made contact with him, he had recently trained Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman for their long way around, their first motorcycle trip around the globe. And there's a documentary out about them. There's 3, actually. There's an up and down, and then there's the first one around the world. And so he said it's very much like Ewan McGregor. I don't know if you know, he's an actor.
Yeah. Jedi,
yeah, okay, cool.
right?
Yeah, and a lot of other stuff.
I guess that's
he's
the most one. Probably the most known for him, but what is it? Da Vinci Code as well. Well, no, the other one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really don't know
Yeah.
all these different movies. Long Way Around was very good. So Jamie, our instructor, really helped us focus, and he Charlie and Ewan did not go to Saudi Arabia, or they didn't hit Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, or Israel. They were higher north. And anyway, Jamie was saying, to give the gravity to the situation, he's saying now in Saudi Arabia, within the borders, he said, I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about what can happen within the borders. First of all, no matter what you do, the two of you will stand out. And just know you are always being watched. Wherever you are in the Middle East. You see, you're being watched. In Saudi Arabia, if you get captured in a kidnap situation, it's over. It's not like Colombia, where it's about drugs, where it used to be about drugs. We want $1 million. We want $5 million. You can have them back. In Saudi Arabia, it's a political statement, and it's a group. Jordan, more westernized than Syria or Saudi Arabia. You'll love Jordan. The people are wonderful, the Jordanians. And he said, you shouldn't have any problem there. 10 days before we left on this journey, 2 hotels in Amman, Jordan, were hit by terrorists. The one that had the wedding party in it, a wedding party, families, children, blown up. We were staying in that hotel. We were set to stay in that hotel. And it was like, are we going to stay there? We're going to stay there. Why? We want to see where people are living. Jamie said, always stay in the back of a hotel on the first floor. That's the least, desired spot for any terrorist. The terrorists are going to make statements in front of the hotel. Outside, in front, in the main, right off the main deal, that's where it's done. So I was like, okay, now what about getting around? Well, then we found the travel company, and they set us up with local drivers that had their own cars, kind of like Uber, but it wasn't Uber. And the cars weren't like Uber. We said we did not want any SUVs, any fancy cars at all. We wanted local people that wanted to make a buck and that could be guaranteed to show up here and to get us there. Then they would turn around. No driver on this 1,100-mile trek would ever know another driver. No one would drop us off to a friend, no one knew between the legs where we were going. Keep that top secret. That's just not talked about. In the car with the driver, and you're going, you're going to go to the Yembo, you're going to Yembo. Well, he might know something about Yembo, and he'll tell you, or you could ask questions. But at that point, do not talk about anything else, So we had that, and then the gear we had the new Panasonic Tough Book, which was, the military grade, and it was being used in Afghanistan and Iraq. We had a brand new 406 megahertz personal locator beacon. I've done other podcasts, and I've just pulled this out. This is the locator beacon, and you release the antenna, triangulate, press these buttons, and it is going to pick up the satellite. This is back in 2006. They're much smaller these days. In 2006, no matter where you are, you'll triangulate, and it will beep into places, and in this particular ACR will be tracked to where you are. Instructions at the end, wherever this reaches, and it's a person that they're going to call, that we put in charge of, and the insurance that we have. The only time we would fire that off is mortal danger. And we were set to have help come and get us. That's the kind of insurance we had.
Yeah, well, that's intense. Being prepared like that, you must have been really feeling weird or anxious a bit as well, or excited. I don't know. Going there.
I think a level of enthusiasm. On top of that, for each place, we'd studied, the different things in different cities, places we might want to go. But more importantly, we studied history. So it was that we wanted to see through Lawrence's eyes, because he was a Westerner and he loved it. And we would see, well, would we like it? There were so many things going on in the United States against anyone that looked like an Arab.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
It's not only the United States. I think in Europe as well. And
of course,
automatically look at them suspicious, right? Anything looking Arabic with a thick beard is already like, whoa, dangerous. But they're not. I have never had any negative experience. But it's thanks to the Hollywood movies and some media, we have this feeling.
There it
right?
is.
So you were very, again, going back to describing yourself, curious, adaptable, and resilient. So the curiosity was pushing you really forward. Like, hey, someone said this is a nice culture, nice people. I need to find out. My government, my news, my TV, whatever, they tell a different story. I need to know. The curiosity was stronger.
Right. Exactly. And we found out.
Yeah.
And when you listen to people's story that you meet, they are not political. They're not asking for anything. It's just who are you? For instance, we because of Seeds of Peace, and we met with the Seeds of Peace organization in New York City. The man that had started it had passed on, and his wife was running Seeds of Peace out of New York. And they had chapters, people and offices in Jeddah, in Amman, in Damascus, and in Jerusalem. We were able to meet with people in these different places, not in Syria, but we were able to meet with campers, people that had gone to camp. And they said, maybe you would like to talk with some of the people. We said, that would be wonderful. Well, we have some of them are working for us in these offices. And it was fantastic to hear from an Israeli what it was like going to camp in Maine and being with Palestinians. And, there were two situations, and it was the same thing, similar. A girl saying, well, it's really interesting because my mother and father were very questioning, why are you going? Why did you want to do this? And she said, I want peace. You know what we think. And yes, I don't think like you, Mom. I don't think like you, Dad. You don't like them. Never say what you say, those people. And I want to go and see them for myself. She goes, she has an argument with a Palestinian girl, And she said, and the first thing that came out of her mouth sounded exactly like her mom. She ripped into this girl and said, you are blah, 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 blah. And she just broke down and started crying. And she said that she realized, and the counselor, she said, and the counselor comes over and says, this is good. This is what we're dealing with. You're grown in a family that has beliefs. But you can see that Talia, is she so bad? Isn't she not like you? And she runs out. She said, I ran out of there. I was so ashamed. That went over and I got underneath the tree, and I was just like, oh. And I was just hands over my head. And I just didn't know what to do. And I just thought, I want to leave. She hears a flute behind her. She goes, that's so nice. It's probably so-and-so. I think she said she plays flute. She opens her eyes and the flute comes around, and it's the girl she had been yelling at. And she just, done. I will never speak the way I did that. And they've become lifelong friends. And it was just coming to turn, realizing, having idealistic ideas, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, what do we turn to? And especially when we're young, it just flies out of our mouth. Me thinking I was so hot and just jumping on the helicopter with my blood and just thinking I'm cool. Feet flying in the breeze and almost falling out. It's like, wake up. You're not so cool. And these lays. So a lot of wonderful lessons like that, and to be able to go places and meet people and have food to eat. You see, you can You can question someone's opinions, but when someone is telling their story, and you listen, it's undeniable. It's their story. And it's usually something that you relate to. So that's the real stuff. Not an opinion, but it's something to find empathy, something to relate. And that's big. Being there, we were in one, just real quick, Magar Shaib, where the driver stopped, and he was quick talking. He was like, "Oh, I did your here," and I was going, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." I don't know what you're saying. He's going, "Oh no, Musa," and he's pointing down into a valley, and there's nothing there except a couple little structures, and it's along the Red Sea. Magar Shaib. And I said, "Are you saying Moses? Moses? Moses. Bible, Moses." For what? He said, "Prophet." I said, "Yeah, he's a Christian prophet." He goes, he lived, word came out, he lived there for 10 years. I'm the idiot. Miles and I are like, we're really, truly ignorant. All three religions share the same prophet.
To some degrees, right? It's the Old Testament, the New Testament.
Well, there's that, but it's the prophets. It's John the Baptist's head. Now they say that his head is in 4 places. Okay, in Damascus, at the Umayyad Mosque, the second largest, most honored Muslim site in Damascus. There's a crypt, and that his head is interred there, and it's wrought iron filigree protecting this, and these neon green lights, and everyone it's like a little cabin inside this mosque, huge mosque, but it's not like a room cabin, and it's sealed off, and people holding on and crying, and they're in the mosque just before prayer time, noon prayer. Tears. John the Baptist. Oh, Francis came through a couple of years ago. Bless him. Came through and recognized that this was. He didn't say this is the place, but he was there and honored the John the Baptist's head was considered to be there. And then the call to prayer, and all those people that were hanging on to many. Women went one way, and men went the other way, and they took off their shoes outside the prayer room, and they had noon prayer. That was big to know that the thinking, the whole thinking of do unto others as you would have others do unto you, is in all three religions. Maybe said a little different way, but it's like, where do we find common ground and commonalities so that we can get along? Is it really going to be about what resources you have and what I want because I have a bigger stick? I can get it from you, and don't fight me. I'm going to take it. And that's, white man has done that. Big.
Yeah, definitely. White man has done a lot of things like that.
Yeah. Well, so we did the trek. We went through 39 checkpoints. We've been asked since. I've been asked since. I believe Miles has too. Well, once you go through one checkpoint, you kind of get used to it, right? And it's like, no. You don't. Every single one is unique, and you have to be alert for all of them. Well, what was the hardest thing about doing the trek? Staying alert. It was like by the time at the end of the journey, we were in Jerusalem, we realized we were completely exhausted from the traveling. And it wasn't like, hey, this is cool, partying. It was the just intensity of being turned on and conscious and having meals and being observant and learning to eat and following the customs and listening, observing. The immigration in Israel was very aggressive. And it's not aggressive because of me. It's aggressive because of the situation. The not knowing, the concern, the aware, the alertness to bombs, people, bad. And so it's very aggressive. It's not welcome to Israel. You go into Dubai, in Emirates, and there's in the immigration hall, there's a huge screen and a woman's voice saying, welcome to tomorrow. And gorgeous, and it's welcoming. Come to the United States, and it says, welcome to the United States. Signs go through JFK, wherever you go through it in Israel. We crossed on a bus. From Amman, we had picked up a bus and we're going across the King Hussein Allenby Bridge. Jamie said, not advisable. For obvious reasons. But we said we wanted to see, just being on that bus. We were on the bus probably a total close to 2 hours. And it wasn't because we were moving. We were sitting, not knowing what's going on. No way to open the windows. Driver, I was tall enough I could see, that he's leaning over and talking to someone out the window. And it's like, who is it? What is it? And sardine, when you say packed like sardines, yep. Hot, yep. Windows wouldn't come down, nope. Babies crying. People just all eyes and pretty quiet. High voices speaking in, Arabic or different languages. And concern. Getting off the bus, suddenly the volume was cranked all the way up. Went into a place that it looked like a level of chaos because it was so quiet and tense on the bus. 2 guys outside the bus. We pulled up at immigration, 50 yards away. Another bus pulled up, 50 yards on the other side. They were unloading the bus, people walking, just seeing people in a line walking to the door that's further down the parking lot. They kept the buses away from the door of the immigration, big parking lot. They kept the buses away from the buses. And 2 guys just walking around. They were in jeans and kind of old-fashioned work shirts, blue double-pocketed work shirts, no uniform, and Taver assault rifles. And just looking in the windows, walking along, looking in the window of the bus. And that was like for 45 minutes. And then when the door opened, everybody got up, quietly got out. And when you opened the door to immigration, it was like this cacophony of noise. Sit back, stand back, there, do that. I said, wow. Realize the potential of what can happen, not from the immigration officers, from people coming in the door. And they're concerned, and they treat people like like they're idiots. And they make sure, my immigration officer happened to be a woman. She happened to be a very attractive Jewish lady, tall and healthy. And it was like, we just hadn't seen women, and I'm married. And so I just like, wow, and I could smell like perfume on her. And I was looking away and I was just going, and I realized she was talking, and she said, "Mr. Jones, look at me when I talk to you." Like, her beauty and all that stuff just like faded. Rappaport, her name. And then she said, empty your backpack. We had to go through it all. So she went through it. What it didn't have, when she held up the BGAN, do you know what a BGAN is? BGAN stands for Broadband Global Access Network. It looks like a thick, cream-colored laptop. It has a lid on it. And you open the lid and there's nothing inside. Satellite. She opened it, and it's like, what is this? It was like suddenly became, what is this? So it's a BGAN, Broadband Global Access. It's a satellite. Oh. She took this. Looking at this, and she saw it says, 406 megahertz. It had just been released, less than a year for civilian use. And she said, I get it. I know what you are. Maybe someday I'll do the same thing and have all these sorts. She was thinking I was like Blackwater, triple canopy, Centurion. So I get it. But it's in the book. I'll leave it at that. It's a very telling. And the whole thing on Jerusalem is wonderful. I couldn't wait to get to Jerusalem, to be in Israel. I want to go. I want to see it. It's biblical. It's so historical. That's the part of the journey that was just so magnificent. Being in Damascus and going to Ananias's house. Ananias is the guy that, Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus was struck by lightning in the Bible. And a voice says, "Saul, why do you persecute the Christians? Go to Ananias's house." He's shown what to do. Goes to Ananias' house, and Ananias heals him of his blindness. But there is a house. And the house is on the street called Straight. And there is a street. And when you go there, it's not commercialized like, hey, come on into Ananias' house. He's the man that did this, that converted Saul to Paul, 2006. Primitive. Go down into the basement of Ananias' house, and they have wire trying to hold everything back. Big stones in the dirt in the house. Been there for thousands of years. Damascus is the oldest, longest standing city in the world. And you go to the old part of the city like this, it's unbelievable. You go to these places and they're in Jerusalem. You go to the Garden of Gethsemane and you see an olive tree, and there's a sign, over 2,000 years old. The olive tree. That'd be easy to say. So it's been around since, the betrayal of Jesus. Again, just biblical. But it is stuff, whether one believes in it or not, it's written in a book, And then you go to a place and you start seeing these things, and you see Calvary, and Jerusalem, the old city, the path that Jesus carried the cross. Now, I'm not a Jesus freak. I'm aware, I'm knowledgeable, like I am Lawrence and other people. But I do believe there was a man called Jesus, and he was incredible, And there was a Buddha, and there was all different things.
A
Muhammad.
white buffalo.
Yeah, the white buffalo. Right.
Not to forget the Native Americans all around the world.
Absolutely.
There's also Aborigines or African people which were.
I find it fascinating. That's how we survive, is that we believe. And there's a belief in something, you go, well, is that real? It's real to me. And that's what keeps me alive. It keeps me decent, maybe.
Yeah.
Keeps me. So the religion was big to find that out, and to go to historical sites, to go through checkpoints, to realize that this is what people endure. And it's a different life than Americans, than what we have. Or you.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a different life here in Switzerland. Sorry, my microphone was just making a head spin.
I see. So you're in Switzerland.
No,
I thought you were in Denmark.
No, I'm Denmark, but I'm Swiss.
I gotcha.
I'm Swiss living in Denmark. It's not that far away. We have Germany in between, but still also the culture, the beliefs, the habits are different.
Yeah.
The way of speaking.
Right.
So when you did that long trip, there must be several nice moments, because you talk about it with good energy, with good feelings behind it, right? You have like these difficult moments, like sitting in the bus for 2 hours, being cramped up, being like kind of like put to place, like very rough, very aggressive. And what were the surprising moments, the beautiful surprising moments you could not have imagined, which are still very close to your heart?
Well, several. I felt the most connected to our purpose, to our intention, to our objective when I was on a camel in Wadi Rum and riding with Miles and Saba, just three of us, in no man's land. It was just sand and rock formations and sun. It got up, I believe it was like right around 118 degrees. Wow. And wearing Bedouin kit. So we were wearing keffiyeh and like a pajama type bottom, trouser, and just layers over. Much like the cold, you wear layers in the heat for insulation. And that, and also because we had been going for hours, just the rhythm of the camel and thinking of other people, Lawrence, thinking of the history of the area and the purity and the quiet. You hear the camel make grunting noises once in a while, but just quiet, beauty. And clearly signs that there'd been a lot of wind. You can see ripples in the sands and along the dunes. But peace. Most peaceful. No talking. Quiet. I found that to be very spiritual. Just very amazing. There, you can go to the Sahara, you can go to Death Valley, but I don't think there's any place like it. The same. Wadi Rum. We were on camels for 3 days. Wow. Through there. Yeah. And it seemed so primitive, but so simple, pure. and then talking. There was such an echo off the walls of the formations walls. You know, could do a clap, and to hear clap, 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 clap. It's been a long time since I've heard an echo like that. You know, you could start singing, and then it would start singing. It would be your voice a second later saying the same thing. It was just very interesting. That was very special. Very.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, same.
How was it compared to Antarctica? When I think you're sharing, I have the feeling Antarctica is very desolated, quiet. You said no wind. Everything is ice and snow, and the desert is everything is sand and stone formations. How similar, besides the vast difference in temperature, are those places?
Very, very similar. I found the same sense that I found in both places, and I've compared that. But you bring it up is very interesting because I've talked about that before. That there was a time I was in the dry valleys in Antarctica, and it's an area, the only area in Antarctica really that doesn't have snow in it. It's all exposed rock, and in the dry valley, there's a dais between two valleys. So you have two valleys that come up to their beginnings, and at the very far end, there could be 15 to 2,000 feet higher than below. They come up, and in the middle is land, and it's the same height is on either side of the valleys. But the valleys come up along the dais, and we camped out there. This is when I was in the service and I was young, and it was the first time that I heard absolute quiet, where there was no interference, there was no sound, and it was light. And it seemed there was no buzz, there was no hum, and so the only thing that I could hear my heartbeat. It was just, how sometimes you can sense your heart beating. You sense it, but there was something about it. I was just so absolutely still. No human voice, no sounds of any human activity, nothing. There's there excepting land. And I found the same to be true in Wadi Rum. There was sand, and it was absolutely peaceful, quiet. And the sand is clean. It's not dirty sand. It's just, you get the sand off you. It doesn't dirty your clothes. Your body does that from perspiration, that sort of thing. Very similar. And the sun, same thing. The sun being so prevalent, so dominant in blue sky, just unbelievable, deep substance, blue, rich sky. And then it will change, And, but Antarctica was the contrast between the white and the blue, and Wadi Rum, or parts of Saudi where we were, and Jordan, most of Saudi. It's just the bay and the sun and the blue. And nighttime, very similar. The stars, because there's no pollution. You see, there's very little pollution. There's no pollution in Antarctica. So the stars are just so massive. And when you see shooting stars, it's not like a little blip. It's like, you go, wow. It doesn't go for a little, couple of inches on the sky. Oh, I saw a star. I saw one. Like watch it. Whoa. Really go far.
Yeah. That makes me think of how was it a few hundred years ago when we had no pollution all around the world. Why were people so much to astrology, telling stories at the fire, looking up the skies?
Oh, yeah. Well, the stars in Antarctica, I've only seen in video from people that have spent the night there, that have spent the winter there. So the season goes from October to February, and then there's a winter over crew, and that includes maintenance people and research scientists that are monitoring things, But it is amazing if you have a glass of hot water and it's minus, 30 some odd degrees, and you throw that in the air outside of a window, a door, and you just watch it freeze. Right? And if you have a hole in your door a teeny, teeny little hole, and there's a windstorm going on that's just blowing snow, it's not snow like we think of snow, it's crystals. And it's fine. It's very fine. It will pile up like, you have an outer door, and then you have a mud room, and then another door before you come into a shelter. And that, in between that outer door and the inner door, it could fill up with snow quickly if it's not completely sealed off from the outside.
Wow, those are experiences.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. It's makes you feel different or change. I mean, how much did these? I mean, you were 19 to 24-ish being in the South Pole in Antarctica, so it's hard to say how much that changed. You obviously changed, but it's also the age where we change. And now in 2006, the other experience. How much did that change you as a person and the worldview or whatever, spiritual, emotional? I don't know, work-wise.
I think that it's all been an evolution to today. It's all these experiences from being in TV studios, being on site, being a Dutch skier in a beer commercial, that's being shot in Hollywood, in the desert, in Hollywood, but it's made to look like it's a snow area. It's made to look like Canada, the bugaboos. And it's seeing how people work, how things get done, and it's just an evolution. And it's right now where I am is it's just like the tap on the shoulder now is we're writing our second book. And the book is called Havana Familia. And so it's about Havana, Cuba. And much like a line in the sand, we have a travel device, Back to the Future travel device, and in Havana. And so we go back to 1958, which is just before the revolution. And we're presenting what we see. And then the current day is 2016, when Obama opened up the doors for people to go to Cuba. Cuba and the United States were in good shape. And then that was closed. It lasted about a year, maybe a little more than a year. And Miles was there during that time. And Miles is our next book is on how people have dealt with that island, Cuba, the Spanish, the Russians, the Americans, and who has suffered, who has gained, and who has lost, from all of the machinations of white man. Again, desire resources, whether it's gambling, mafia, and being free to do whatever they want without any legal issues, to Sugar Kings and Bacardi rum cigars and the cigar factories, and who wins and who loses, who doesn't get it, doesn't reap the benefits
Wow. Yes.
of all of it. And so it's another adventure to understanding with Magnus and Finn, the two title characters. I want to say that the book, A Line in the Sand, we started writing it just right after October 7th, 2023, when Hamas did that horrific act. And we wanted to join the narrative, much like Lawrence wrote about the Middle East. During his time, we were writing about what we experienced in 2006. And it seems to be resonating with people and show how it's like a primer on how we got into this mess. What was done that allowed this kind of anger and hatred to grow to such extremes that we have seen on both sides. An act, and then an act of retribution, then an act of retribution, and then it's become righteous indignation on both sides. And it's, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm right. I've got God. Yeah, I've got God. I've got country. I've got country. I've got, I know what I'm doing is right. I know what I'm doing is right. And it's just killing the innocents. So what? It's crazy.
Yeah.
How can it continue? It is, yes, it's gone on and on, but when can it stop? Is there a moment where man's thirst is sated, is satisfied, where they don't feel, or is that just the thrust of humankind to be bigger, better? I don't know. And I truly see, yes, I'm not in the middle of it, but I can understand both sides, the feeling. So from our journey there and in our book, Miles and I realized there are commonalities, and that if we highlight those, and it's like, that is, no one's going to listen to that. I mean, the powers that be, commonalities, it's payback time.
It's Middle East, but it's Israel against Arabic world, kind of. How is an American having the feeling he needs to write about that, about, setting the stage right in Israel, because it's so far from where you come from? It's not a judgment.
Because,
yeah.
Well, I see my citizenship not to be with just Santa Fe or the United States. I'm a world citizen. I am. When you travel and you realize how similar and common, it's different clothing, language, food, music, all of which can be just so exciting to learn about. But you realize that the intentions of people and their needs, water, electricity, there's just shelter. And when they're being told, move, leave, by someone with because I want what you're standing on. We've done that to our American Indians, Native Americans. It's done all over the world forever. I'm on the side of peace, not war.
Yeah.
Finding commonalities that are strong enough. And you can say, no, I worked too hard. I will lose too much. And therefore, I have to fight. And that's it seems to be where we are.
It's very interesting what you said now, because about 2 years ago, I had a Native American Aztec from Mexico at my place, 4 or 5 days. And he said Incas, Mayas, Aztecs,
Yes.
and other Native Americans. The only thing they possessed was time, nothing else. There was no house, no ground, nothing was yours. The only thing that was yours is your time.
Pretty interesting, isn't it?
What do you
But
fight about?
I know, but when you go to a city and you see the buildings, go to Dubai and you see the biggest, the tallest, the most expensive, the most magnificent. There's no plastic in Dubai. It's all hand carved. It's ivory. It's gold. The buildings and the things and the way they do it, it's just phenomenal. Because of the money that's there. Well, for us, it's just a little teensy bit of what we think is just another view by writing these books and doing this. And that's the purpose. And it's to offer another view. It's to offer a voice to those that feel similar. And right now, the voices in America are being squelched. Truly, for the first time. Really, as there's a concern about what people say about our government now in America. They can say it in private, but to post, to publicly, claim some of these things, there's great reticence to doing that because of retribution within our own land.
Yeah, I've heard stuff that German citizens have been censored during COVID, so information was not available for all Germans from the left and right. So only the government's opinion was allowed to be spoken, not anything else. Right. So when I listen to you, the 2 hours we have, I just looked 2 hours.
Is it?
Yeah, it's 2 hours. You have to make it big. Adventure with purpose definitely sounds like your life. Curious, adaptable, resilient, really goes through all your life. And I have this feeling you're like a very good storyteller. I couldn't really ask questions because you kind of already moved on. So,
my apologies.
No, it's a flow, right? There was a flow. I didn't feel like there's no flow. Otherwise, I would interrupt more. I have just a feeling you grew and grew and grew. You're still doing the production stuff and acting once in a while, right? Or did you stop that? No, you do that. Now you started writing a book. So the first book was A Line in the Sand. Or did you write before that as well?
No.
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 Did you write it yourself, or did you use AI, or did you use a ghostwriter and just pop information?
No, Miles and I wrote the book. Miles came up with an outline. Well, we've been working on a play, but it's covering similar things. It wasn't covering our track, but we worked a lot with other writers to find out what would work in a play. We've commissioned writers, professional, to write, and we've had 4. And the most recent one, the 4th one, is an American woman, not a British. We've worked with British guys and people that are known.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention their names. We've dissolved the contracts with them because we didn't get what we needed, and we have 4th writer, and we've been working with her for a number of years on this, and part of it is just the way it's worked out because we've had other things going on, but so there is that, and from that and from all the dispatches every day when we were in the Middle East, one of the things we did to our funders is that we wrote individually. Miles wrote his, I wrote mine, an acknowledgement of something that happened that day or a new experience or what the experience was. Just a page and a half, maybe 2 pages of and they became very colorful anecdotes from the trip. And it includes much, and we have video as well. And we also took a lot of photographs. And so doing the play, all of this was a part of our feed to the writers And so when it came time and a decision, we had thought about writing a book, and we had started right after we got back. We started writing a book. Basically, I was writing character descriptions for different people, and Miles had what he was doing. And so after October 7th, Miles said, we need to write the book about our trek in the Middle East. And we came up with fictional characters instead of doing nonfiction. That was a choice. And the nonfiction, because that allowed us to have a level of entertainment that would draw the reader in. The goal was to bridge an understanding of some of the history of the area, the agreements, Lawrence, how Lawrence became a rock star in his own way, and present it through a time travel device, which was a dagger. And we came up with the concept of how to make the story become a quest to understand actually what's in this rucksack that was given to one of the grandmothers. And so we realized we wanted to include food and meals that we had with people. We realized we had just run with the bulls in Pamplona, Spain, in July of 2023, and that was a wonderful epic, 4 minutes. It's so fast. It's half a mile. The bulls run a 4-minute mile. They're fast, and they weigh between 1,500 2,000 pounds. And anyway, that we included as the kind of the introduction to the story, where we met one of the characters. We didn't actually meet Jeremy running with the bulls in 2023. We met him in 2006. But we introduced the book and the characters by reliving a real thing, an adventure that we had, And so the writing came quickly, and it was 24/7, and it was outlined it just flowed. And we had a couple of people read it, and we should have had an editor go through it. And there are things that we will do with a revision of the book, which we're planning, that would make it much more industry standard, just different things. But the story is still there, and clearly we're over 600 Amazon reviews.
Wow.
And another 300 or so of international reviews. And so it's being read, and there's a response to it. And the response, for the most part, is exactly what we intended, and it has to do with the history, because that's what's important. And it has to do with Jeremy and Abdu and their point of view, because that's so current. Even though it was talking 2006, it's so exactly what happened. Is more horrific, on October 7th, 2023 than what was going on in 2006. But it's just escalated to this boiling point. And that's why we wanted to get the book out. And so it was really a joy.
So
Joy.
So you said that horrific event basically catalyzed you guys. We have to write. You started sitting down. It flew out of you.
No.
It flew kind of out of you. And you said February 24, it was already on the market, right?
It was.
So it's like
took
5 months.
4 months. Yeah, 4 or 5 months. Yeah. It was just very fast. We have talked over the years, whenever we bring up stories from the Middle East, they're crystal clear. It's like we're sitting there experiencing it. And also after the trek, what happened is that we met one of the Seeds of Peace father, found out that we were event producers as well. And he found out the level that we worked at. And he asked if we would be interested in looking at a project that the Saudis were interested in doing. So we looked at several, and we presented ideas, and we were awarded a project that was called the Asir Sea Festival. It was an 8-day sea festival with Formula One UIM intercontinental boat racing and hot air balloon demonstrations. And so we brought these countries in. We brought in 27 countries into Saudi Arabia, working with Saudi Arabia, and cleared a square mile of land in the very southern part of Saudi Arabia, which is in the province called Asir, right on the Red Sea, and put together this amazing 8-day sea festival back in 2008.
Oh. Yeah.
And I was the production, and Miles was finances, and another guy was graphics and technical stuff. And I met just the most fabulous guy, and we were friends. Mark Lockwood was our project manager, and he worked for Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson,
Okay.
for about 8 years, and doing all of his hot air balloon events around the globe. And Mark, I mean, working with people that Mark's a pilot, balloon pilot, a motorcyclist, a musician, a writer, an artist. When it comes time to create, like the entryway to the festival, he draws it out. I mean, it's like a piece of art. He's just like an architect. And just very experienced people. I've been blessed to work with people that are in the 1% of 1% in their intelligence and their skill. And one of the things Mark has done, he's cargo dropped an Audi car
Okay.
from a plane, and it lands on the back of a flatbed that's moving. This is the way it looks. And it puts it in reverse. There's a driver in the car. Puts it in reverse, flies off the back end of the flatbed, whirls around, and takes off straight down the road. It's a television commercial.
And that was real.
But yeah. I mean, parts of it, there were pieces that were segmented. I mean, it didn't just drop and land there, and we worked out to do the way it was put together. But yes, but to figure out how to cargo drop from a big airplane, a car, you have to be an engineer. You have to understand so much, the right size parachute, how it's going to deploy, just so many elements. That's the kind of guy Mark is. And at the same time, he's one of the funniest guys I've ever met. Sense of humor. And he can work 24/7. He shouldn't, but he has. We did the festival together in Saudi Arabia. He was my right arm, Mark Lockwood.
Yeah.
He's retired. He had a production company in Dubai. He was the #1 production company for anything big, international company that wants to have a big show of their or the displays. I mean, he would bring in Cirque du Soleil. He'd bring in big things or create big things. And it's working with people with that kind of an imagination. Miles Spencer has an imagination and the ability. I mean, he is very unique. And he and I have been friends, like it says in the book. The day we met, we were lifelong friends. And it's just that he has a skill set, I have a skill set, and then we just meet, been able to do great things. Television show, Money Hunt, incredible television show. And then we took it on the road, and then we were going to sell it to other countries, and that was all set up. And then it was during the .com .com blew up, and so the main feed of businesses coming through our television show were from the .com, industry. People with ideas and business plans to create things. And anyway, so I've been blessed to work with people like that.
Yeah. So
Been tapped on the shoulder by people. They go, would you take a look at this?
yeah, like the
You know?
tap on the shoulder, podcast live. So there's many questions which I usually get when I talk with people. It's then the question.
I'll be quiet. You ask the question.
Yeah, it's because we are over 2 hours already, 2 hours 15. So I'm thinking of closing in. Otherwise, we can go on 3-4 hours. It's just then the question of my energy level. Eventually, that drops. I'm not a 24.
Right, it's a different time.
Yeah, I'm not a 24/7 energy type. I realized I'm projecting more on people. I'm riding on the wave with people. I get inspired, and then things are getting done. And when I'm alone, it's me alone. And I looked a lot on astrology, human design, gene keys, stuff like that. And so the interview I'm working on right now was from November on human design, a Dutch guy growing up in Texas and other places. And so his and my strategy of life should be wait for the invitation. And when I listen to you, it's kind of like you were invited all the time, like do this, do that. People come to you. Is that also when you're silent in a party, you sit there just feeling good, people will come to you and ask you stuff? Or are you the one going out and talking to the people and get into the conversations?
Well, I'm a loner. I'm not when I'm at a party, I can be very sociable, but I find one, I don't socialize a lot. I go out on the mountains, I swim, I talk with people, I meet people, I have business, I have Miles, I have a daughter that's here, I have 2 sons in California, but I find that I've been so busy with the current activity. I just ended a relationship. Yeah, I just ended a relationship, and it was 4 months ago, and it's been a challenge in some ways, and it's been a great level of freedom. But the most thing is that I am back to being very focused on what I'm doing. Right now, I'm getting ready to go to Havana, and that's for the book. And I'm watching a lot of documentaries and movies and read a lot, and learning history and getting a sense of things. My focus is on that. My being prepared and being ready for the tap is doing what I think is right. One, I find that if I am not physically strong, I lose mental balance. And physically strong means being able to do activities. This morning I was up early. I do a mountain. It's basically up and down. It's probably an hour and 35 minutes, but it's a scramble, and it's steep and it's high, and I'm alone, which I like, and it's chilly, and I wear a weighted vest, and tomorrow I will swim. So every day it's a mountain, swim, a mountain, swim, and I find that it's being prepared and being qualified, going to Havana, not book the ticket until I know I'm ready to go. And I've done a lot, but I want to go with big purpose. There is with purpose, but intention as well, to cover certain ground, to absorb, and to be in the mindset for that absorption. And so that comes with, last night was the first time I got more sleep. And I got 9 hours. And for me, I need it, and blew a lot of that on the mountain, but you can see I have energy, and my birthday is Monday, and I am turning 70
Oh,
on Monday.
so you're Taurus, very earthy sign.
So
A
what?
Taurus, a very earthy sign.
Yes, I am. I am. Yes.
Because I asked,
And
I can see you have your off time where you are alone. You have your mountaining, you have your swimming, but what in this podcast I'm working on, we talked about is like filling yourself up, and it has a little bit the theme, like you said, being prepared for the tap on the shoulder, and there's like, do things that fill you up, avoid the peoples that drain you. Not that they're bad people, it's just that you don't fit the chemistry.
Right.
You could be super awesome people, but together this other party will drain you.
that's what happened with my most recent relationship. It's like, it's not working. It's not.
Yeah, so you get tracked.
It's a disconnect.
Yes, and then the thing is, when you are happy, when you're joyful, when you feel this joy, this happiness, this purpose or whatever, then people tend to be drawn to you. And he said something like the tap on the shoulder. He said like this, like you're invited 100 times to help, to give you advice, to support, and one of these 100 is like the big door opener. And listening to you, I was like, this is funny when I'm working on this podcast, and this is something which is staying in the editing in my mind, and you keep on saying, yeah, be prepared for the tap on the shoulder, and then the door opens and you're pivoting through life, adventure, travel, to writing a book, to creating events, to do beneficial fundraising, etc., being in the military, all these things. I was thinking like, okay, there's a man which kind of is centered in himself, and then the opportunities come.
Yes. I mean, you can have a desire, Oliver, and if it's a pure desire in you, then you can pursue that. There's nothing wrong with that, And I feel that I get asked, and whether it's an inner voice or something that's asking something of me, but it's being tuned into it. And my reactions are just so different than when I was young, and it's filled with substance. It's not just, okay, yeah, and jump in, and it's not being cautious. It's just having a level, maybe experience, wisdom. And with that, I'm talking about trust. When my mother said that about, if you can't deal with where you are, you have no business moving forward. What she was really talking about is engage and be fully engaged and trust. And you go, well, what are you trusting? You? Well, yeah, you got to learn to trust yourself. And we're told what we're supposed to do all the time, whether it's commercials, whether it's this, if I don't have that, blah, blah. It's like, just trust your own body and instincts, and find that confidence in that trust.
Yeah.
And go with it. And it's like, I don't have issues. I read about people saying, well, I don't want to get out of bed at 4 a.m. Okay. All right. For me, getting out of bed is a good thing. It's like, go, get up. This is great. It's okay. Even with the things that are very challenging to deal with, emotions from a relationship. Is this the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Am I giving enough? these are my thoughts. But I also know that no, I love deeply. And if I have to be concerned about my partner's love, then I can't be in that relationship, you know? And you say, and I realize I've reasoned it through when I was married. I was married and in a relationship for 29 years. And it was basically over well before we ended it. But it had reached its point, and the reason for being together were legitimate. And it wasn't being together and it was all hell. Some of it wasn't good, truly. And it was exposed to children. But children, responsibilities, commitment, and and I'm not going to be my dad, my dad running away, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be something, I'm going to be honorable. And that's my intentions, whether I was or not, is for someone else to judge. But for yourself, follow your true voice that's in there, not the questioning, negative and the negative. It's like, just, I want to do the right thing. What do I need to do? And I have found that has always led me down a satisfying road.
And thereby you answered my question I only asked in the head. Advice or tip for the listeners. So you gave that the last 5 minutes 2 ways of how to look at it. Then another, I don't know how to say, the purpose of life. How would you look at purpose of life? How would you define it?
Just be the most you can be. And that is, it has to include others. It has to include kindness and love. And my mother was on her bed in hospice, and she said, "You've not been in love." I know you haven't. This is a while ago. So I thought I was in love recently, or I was. I didn't think I was, but I had to forfeit that for my own peace. And so it's, I think it's a great thing, and that's what I would like. I would like to be in a relationship that is truly, not fairy book. I've been in enough relationships, but really, I want to know more about love. I really do. And share it, because I'm affectionate and I need an object, and it's not a bottle and it's not drugs. I'm clear of that, but I would like a person.
Yeah, it's love, but there's so many different definitions of love and ways of love. And one way is, Jesus is love, as so many people come. And I'm not a Christian per se, but I believe if a man lived, which was Jesus, and I heard also the naming and the letters, it's the same as ISIS from, it just means I am. So Jesus means I am.
Yep. Yes.
Joshua, I think, also means I am. So if he really was named Jesus or another name, it doesn't matter. But the message is the important part, I think.
That's what I was trying to say earlier. You said it very well. I agree. It's the message.
Yeah, and it's love, like love, and it starts with yourself, because we always say love the others as you love yourself. Like, yeah, but many people forget to love themselves. So how can we love someone else?
Yeah.
Because we have to love ourselves as much as we love our neighbor or our kids.
Yes.
Only then we can fill us up, and then we don't have war. We have peace, because then we are filled. We don't need to fill the hole.
It's so true. If we're warring with self, my goodness, that's, and I've believe me, a lot of time with that, warring with self. in different ways. It's and I love that reading biographies and reading about people and hearing stories, listening to podcasts about people and seeing not their flaws, their humanness. And we're all human. And so we're working, I would just like to do the best I can every day because I find I'm happier. And if I and not procrastinate, but do go ahead, make a move, action.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you. I always say I've loved doing this.
Yeah, it was when we had the introduction talk, we were bouncing more back and forth, but you just were in a flow, and I'm like, okay, I let it go. I don't want to interrupt. Also, when there were breaks, because they felt like they were the right silence points. It just felt I needed to give that to the audience and to you. Because I also had this feeling like it's a lot about your Antarctica, your desert experience, you're going alone up the mountains, is the being in the now, being present, accepting the stillness and everything. So where can people reach out to you if they want to know more? Where can they buy the book? What do you want them to do?
Yes, thank you. Well, if they're interested, the book is on Amazon. And we do have European Amazon. We've had buyers in France, Germany, all over, but Amazon. A Line in the Sand by Wells Jones and Miles Spencer. And I am just now, for the first time, because of doing podcasts, I will learn to build out my LinkedIn. But I am Wells Tad Jones. And I am actually upgrading information and learning how to post and repost like this interview would be posted and sent out. But that's there. I think Seeds of Peace would be very good just to mention them because they were very, very central to our story in the book. They're listed as Seeds of Hope, but it's about Seeds of Peace and the actual organization and what they do. It wasn't a boatload of money like we did in Kayak for a Cause, but we did give a donation. And Miles Spencer also, there are links to him and his activities will get this podcast out as well, which I will do.
Yeah, I will put all the links, the different books you mentioned, whatever I can find.
Sure.
I will try and
okay.
I will go back and forth with you to be sure that I have.
Sure. That's great. Thanks. And if you need some pictures or something like that, I've got
Yeah, we get a selfie from 77 on the parachute in the middle of the South Pole, obviously. I probably need a few pictures, then we can make reels and have a different picture for everything. I don't know yet. With all these adventures we did.
You let me know and I'll work whatever we need to do. We'll work together on it.
But dear listeners, thank you that you made it to the end of this interview, of this story. This was a more storytelling than usual, even though I like storytelling in all my interviews. And thanks. You know what to do. Share, like, comment. And if you have questions for me or Wells, then, reach out to us. We are open. That's why we do this podcast. So thank you, guys. I'll see you on another episode.
Right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, Wells.
Very much. We'll be in touch.